next we have Dr. Goldsmith, who will be talking about good systems. It's like the good place.
It's only known as
Yeah. Two channels you can use, the right one up there, or you can yeah, it is actually.
Okay, I'm going to start off this talk really talking to students, and the fact that you can go to sleep for a couple of minutes, I'll wake you up. I want to start by talking about a part of the faculty job that we don't tend to talk about. You've just seen Jared talking about research. We have more or less of an idea of what research is. You probably, as students, have some idea of what teachers do. There is at least one other piece called service in our portfolio of expectations. There are other pieces I'll mention briefly. I want to talk about that as a segue into a really kind of fabulous, kind of weird gig that I had a few weeks ago, reviewing a program at the University of Texas, Austin. I want to talk about service because I want to tell you why I took the gig and why they would have expected me, with at least probability 50% to take it. I was invited to review this program, this Good Systems program. Tell you a little bit about that review process, which was unlike anything I've done before, and very cool. And just some of the thoughts that I came away with. So, the University of Kentucky has this weird system where at the beginning of each academic year, the faculty members are asked to predict how much time we're going to spend on each piece. And if you look up there, there's instruction, research, service, administration, I don't do any of that, and professional development, which I have used in the past to mean sabbaticals. You can also use that if you're going to go to some sort of, if you're going to go learn something, I suppose. And the service, can you read this? The service is divided into service to the institution, that's University of Kentucky, and service to the profession. It says that I put in about 5% to each. I will tell you that I put in a lot more than that, and I think most faculty do in service to the profession. Dr. Trustinsky, you don't think so?
Well, then we are doing something less somewhere else. And that's the part that worries me.
Well, out of a 55-hour-a-week job, when I first came here, I filled out one of these. I said, optimistically and incorrectly, that I worked 40 hours a week, and the staff member who was processing them changed it to 50. Okay, so making things clear. So service to the profession often has to do with publications, other people's publications. So we publish articles in journals, and those articles have to be reviewed for correctness, appropriateness for the publication venue, novelty, which means, is this new or did somebody do this already? Somebody has to find the reviewers, that's the editor, and make the final decision based on the reviews. For conferences, there are also reviewers. They are usually lined up ahead of time. There are senior program committee members who manage the reviewers. And then there are the people who organize the conference, and that includes finding the senior program committee members and keeping them on track. It also involves everything from finding the venue and the catering to dealing with the people from another conference who keep drinking your coffee. I speak from experience. Anyway, we also review grant proposals, among other things. Some of us, like Dr. Calvert, serve at the National Science Foundation and other granting institutions. we do mentoring. I've done some work with the CRAW. CRA is, thank you, Computing Research Association. They have a special section that does mentoring for women, and I've done some programs with them. There's outreach. We give public talks. We go out and we talk to schools. We are the public face of computer science. And the et cetera is the other thing that I thought of, is that we serve on committees related to computer science. Some of us have served on the ADA accreditation committee. They go and visit other departments. I believe, Dr. Finkel, you've done this?
Yeah, a long time.
Making sure,
I was asked, so I did.
I was told years ago, if you get asked to do these things, you either should say no promptly or you should say, I will serve with pleasure. It makes the administrators so much happier. So many of these committees review stuff or organize stuff. What I was called on to review, and I apologize that this isn't as clear as I'd like, it is part of a larger program at the University of Texas, Austin, called Bridging Barriers. The idea, the barriers that it is supposed to bridge are between different academic disciplines. The vice president for research at the University of Texas, Austin, put a lot of money, $10 million per program, into this. And to sort of do this out of order of my talk, what he did was he called for people, faculty who were interested in doing interdisciplinary work. They all submitted ideas. He got them into a big room, I think for 2 days, to talk to each other and form groups. The groups, you can see Planet Texas, which is an environmental focus. The whole community's whole health. Obviously, linking communities and health, looking at geography and its relationship to health. And one of the things that immediately came to mind there is the fact that people who live in poor neighborhoods tend to be less healthy because poor neighborhoods are often situated in places either near factories or over fault lines, etc. A lot of clear interdisciplinary work, and then there's good systems, which was the one I was invited to review. Our goal is to find ways to ensure that AI and autonomous technologies are beneficial, not detrimental to society. How could I say no? I mean, this is part of my life work, is to try and do that sort of thing. Apologies if some of this is hard to read. I will read this part to you. Technology, this is the same webpage. Technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. This is the first law of technology outlined by historian Melvin Kranzberg in 1985. It means that technology is only good or bad if we perceive it to be that way based on our own value system. At the same time, because the people who design technology value some things more or less than others, their values influence their designs. One of the things that the AI community has been talking about a lot recently, in part due to some work by the fabulous Joy Below Amini, who started the Algorithmic Justice League. And if you want superheroes, look at them. What she found was that facial recognition systems in the US recognize white men really well and recognize black women really poorly. And black men, white women, somewhere in between. Why? Turns out that one there's a pretty easy answer. These systems were trained on photographs of white men. Where's the value issue there? The value issue there is that they were trained conveniently. The researchers had a bunch of pictures that they got from, who knows, students on their campus, Instagram, I don't remember. You can look this up if you look up Joy Below-Alini's work. And it didn't occur to them that it was important to do anything else.
But, did this concern systems, the research systems, or systems that were deployed in practical settings when they were used to make decisions?
Both.
So can you give me an example of a practically deployed system where this was actually...
I cannot because I don't have those notes. If you would like, I can look it up later. I would be happy to do so. But there's been a lot of stuff in the news in the last couple of months about systems that police are using. Yes. Read my CACM paper. I believe there's some in there. So that was an example where people's priorities, there was a matter of convenience rather than fairness. And it was convenience to the people who developed the training set. It was convenience to the people who used that training set even after it was known to be problematic. So this is up there for a couple of reasons. I wanted to highlight that they just finished their year 0 of the project. So lots of planning, not a lot of money spent yet. They were planning, they were talking about these two important approaches to technology development, value-sensitive design, which if we taught a course on human-computer interface, we would probably talk about a lot there. And socio-technical interaction networks. And this is talking more about the process within the Good Systems program of getting people from social fields and technological fields to work together. Their goals on some high level for all 3 programs were to build collaborations, connect collaborations, and highlight values. A certain amount of this is public relations. So as I said, this came out of the president and vice president for research from the University of Texas, Austin, which is a pretty big school. And I gather a fairly well-funded one. They have a lot of technical companies in the Austin, Dallas areas. The focus was brainstormed by faculty. All of the decision-making within the program is led by faculty, which is both fabulous and kind of awful. I'll get to that. The upper level admin provided support in terms of $10 million in funding to be spent on the program over 8 or 10 years. They also provided, possibly out of that 10 mil, 1 full-time administrator for the Good Systems program, and 2 administrators split among the 3 programs who were doing communications and outreach and finances and stuff. So at the meeting that I attended, the administrator for Good Systems was in the room the whole time taking notes, as was the vice president for research and one of the associate deans for research. Because I've been thinking about these things a lot recently, I will mention the vice president was male, the associate dean was female, and she took notes more steadily than he did. Sort of annoyed me, but it was minor. One of the things that they are doing is annual grants. The goal, the Vice President of Research told us, was to cover two things. One is seed research. So you do a little bit of research in order to position yourself to get big money from outside funders, industry, the government, the military, whomever. And also to cover the parts of a project that those funders might not cover. The values parts, for instance. Cool. I'm totally on board with all of that. They sent us ahead of time a document, about 30 pages of what they're doing, what they want to accomplish, which I suspect most of us read on the plane. I think I looked at it a little bit, but I reviewed it on the way there. And they kept coming back to every decision-making group, every research group in the Good Systems program had to have somebody from technology, somebody from the humanities, and somebody from the social sciences. Question mostly to the faculty, how many of you have done interdisciplinary work? It's hard, right? It's really hard. I mean, it's hard because you have different goals, because you have different vocabulary using the same words to mean different things. You know, Dr. Moore is sitting there saying, yeah. I remember explaining some technical concept to a bunch of social scientists, and I say, and you know what dependencies mean? And I meant probabilistic dependencies. And they're all like, yeah, alcohol dependency and drug. Yeah, same words, totally different. But even the process of writing a paper together is different. How you interact with people is fundamentally different in the different fields. So there was a moment in the discussion when we were in Texas where I think either one of the professors at UT Austin or maybe it was the vice president said, yeah, and this is really hard, and everybody took a deep breath and went, yeah. So even that was kind of exciting that yes, they know it's hard, and yes, they're going to do it anyway. Incidentally, the document had this whole paragraph of mystic mumbo-jumbo about why 3 is an important number. It was kind of fabulous. One of the reviewers had airline issues and hadn't really slept and went off on this rant for a couple of minutes about how this didn't make any sense. We all was like, yeah, you know. And the people who had been involved in creating the document were all sitting there.
Because he felt fall is very important.
I think that's what he said. At some point he got a little incoherent. I should talk. I didn't sleep much last night. The goal of this project is to change how people think about the development, implementation, and deployment of artificial intelligence. And by people here, I mean, well, scope was a really interesting issue. Even in the document, and certainly in the discussion, the scope went from at our university out to the entire world and industry. And sort of changed from sentence to sentence. But definitely they want to change how people at their university think about, develop, and use AI. How the industry, at least the local ones, and they very sensibly pointed out that they have some influence over the local industry because their students go to work there, and some of their faculty work there, consult there. But example, if we really want to change how AI functions in society, we have to change how it's regulated, and we have to change how research and development are funded. This is incredibly ambitious. And part of me is jumping up and down for joy that yes, this needs to be done, and part of me is very cynically saying, how are you going to do that? So in year 0, they did in fact meet, and they put out a call for proposals, and they funded about 10 projects at about $100,000 each or something. Yeah, that sounds about right. And none of them were going to change society at all. They happened to be convenient projects that were available to be funded. I think people only had a few days to put together the proposals, and then the whole committee of faculty involved met. Great deal of work for $100,000 or smaller grants. But they argued reasonably that this was just starting and that this program will have an ongoing presence so people will know that these calls are coming and be able to think more profoundly about the possibilities. The review committee was, I think, 7 of us. We were supposed to meet for dinner the night before the day of the review. Out of the 7, 2 people had airline delays and 1 person had a driving delay. So 4 of us met, talked about our own work, got to know each other, got a little bit of a sense of our own priorities in going into the review. And the next morning, we walked into a room and basically stayed in that room for 7 hours. They had breakfast, they had lunch, and every hour or so we had a 5-minute break. The restrooms are down there, they said. And we talked first to the administrators, then to the professors involved, and then more to the administrators. We brought expertise. At least 3 people in the group had run interdisciplinary programs at different universities. One of them had been an associate dean for research. Some of us are just researchers with interdisciplinary experience. It was really fascinating to be in a room with these people and the people from Texas from lots of different fields. I had no idea how interdisciplinary transportation is. Geography, geology, anthropology. Anyway, I got to hear little bits of that from the transportation person over the course of the day. What we did was talk. We walked in with this document that, or maybe a separate document that had questions about what they're doing, what we thought they could do better. Mostly ignored. Because academics are really good at having opinions. You think? So one of the things the guy who'd been the associate dean for research said is you don't need the committee of the whole to decide on $100,000 grants. Those aren't that big. Just have 3 people. And they all sat there with this kind of, oh, yes, focus, less work. We talked about the goals. We talked about I talked about how to evaluate the progress. Because they had an evaluation plan that was not fundamentally radical. How many papers are going to get published? How many students are going to graduate? All of the usual being counted. And so I talked with the administrators about why they're not doing something more specific to what they're trying to do, and they said, we couldn't find anyone to do it. The people that we know who do evaluation aren't interested. Interesting. talked to the faculty who said, having concluded year 0, they're already burning out. That's horrible. And part of that was some regulations about, at least in the humanities, how much time people could buy out. So we talked to the administrators who took notes, and maybe that's going to change. So that's a little local change that isn't really changing society, but it's enabling change. I have never had the opportunity to spend more than 15 minutes talking to somebody in upper administration at this university or any other. To be in a room for 7 hours with the vice president of research who really wanted to hear ideas about how to make this work was kind of mind-blowing.
But he didn't put them down.
He put some of them down, and other people were writing them down, and he was asking questions.
So he said he didn't take notes.
As much. Yes. So I'm telling you about this because I want you to know that this kind of idealism is out there, that there are entities putting fairly big bucks behind this, but that it's really hard to do. There's the interdisciplinary challenge, there's the burnout challenge, because professors are basically being asked on top of their usual load, squeezed into 5 or 10% of their time to run this program. But there was a kind of optimism that they were really open to hearing from the faculty sitting around the table, their own faculty, and from the outside people. It was exciting. It felt like I might have been at the birth of, well, the infancy of something really important. Something that I would love to see UK do in some form. I don't know where we would get $10 million, and I don't know that we would want to do what they're doing because this was very much a bottom-up development. So, just that there is hope out there for radical rethinking. That's all I have. Questions? I'll go across. Yeah.
So do you think that, like, I guess, like, in the race to sort that out, do you think that the industry is going to, like, do that before academia? Since, like, they're going to have longer time? How do you think that's going to happen?
I'm not sure why you think industry will have more time. I have no idea. If that happens, if programs like this nudge them without actually telling them how to do it, then they're success. That would be fabulous. Judy?
If the consumer demands it, then they would have time, yes? So if this becomes a consumer issue, then of course they'll have the time more than academia will have the time.
Okay. So let's figure out what to
How to get
demand.
the consumer?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Was there any discussion about trying to clarify what the problem is that they were trying to solve? To me, it sounds pretty obscure to change the perception of AI. That's weird.
That may have been my wording. If it wasn't on the slides from their webpage, that was my wording. Yes, it's weird. And yes, there was discussion. I tried to articulate some of it for them. And there was a moment where people around the table were nodding yes, and there was also a moment where the people who were writing things down, wrote it down, and we went on. So I don't know what stuck. I also have no idea if I'm going to be invited back. None of us did. We walked out thinking, well, this was cool. We do this again. So I suppose I need to let them know. I'm going to let them know that I gave this talk. I did check that this was fine to talk about. In fact, they were very excited about the idea of my talking about it because it's another way that spreads the infection, if you will.
Coming back to the last question. This is after year one of the project, a review after year one.
Year 0,
Yes,
actually.
okay, a year has passed, is it right?
Ish.
Okay, somebody set it up. Didn't they bother to say how they will know that they succeeded?
They bothered to write down all the usual bean counting metrics. And I think that that's a real weakness at the moment, is that they have not articulated measures of success. And the people who are involved in creating this are not experts in that kind of measurement. And so I'm talking to people here to see if I can find them somebody who has that kind of expertise, try and connect them. So far, I haven't found any. Dr. Harrison?
So I have a hard time formulating this question in my head, so it might come out as stream of consciousness nonsense if it doesn't, sorry. So it seems that one of the things that they want to do with this program is, like, they want to affect, I'll call it change for lack of a better word, at many different levels. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, what should you be targeting with something like this if you are trying to, like, get other universities to catch on? Like, what's the secret sauce to get people to notice?
Ask me in 3 years when I've thought about it.
Sweet, okay.
I really don't know.
Yeah, just because you see little, not like this, but little innovations in kind of the departments around the country, and very few of them seem to catch on. And so I just wondered if they have an idea of how they wanted to tackle that, if they wanted to tackle that.
I don't think they do yet.
Okay.
Jared?
You mentioned that interdisciplinary work is really hard, and there were a lot of people in a lot of different fields here,
Yeah.
and it was really hard to kind of bridge the gap and have ambassadors that could explain things to each other. Do you think that may have affected progress and motivations going into where instead of reaching across, they planned on taking notes and then scurrying back to their silos?
Yes, the short answer. Yeah, it's hard work. It contributes to the burnout. I think fundamentally they want to do the work, but it may be slower than working within your silo.
My question is kind of similar to Jared's, but because it's an interdisciplinary project and you have people from all of these different fields, was kind of elaborating what exactly AI looks like, was that kind of one of the issues that you all ran into, or was it pretty clear, or did people have a solid understanding of that?
So did we have trouble articulating what AI looked like? The review committee was not tasked to do that. And I'm not sure I saw anything in the text that addressed that.
Okay.
Interesting question. I want to say one last thing, how I got invited. One of our fabulous undergrads, Josiah Hanna, went to the University of Texas, Austin, just got his PhD, is going to be, after a year of postdocing, going to be on the faculty at Madison, University of Wisconsin-Madison. His advisor was very pleased with his progress, and I am sure invited me. So work those connections. You get all sorts of weird, cool stuff.
Thank you very much. We'll see each other again in a week for the next Keeping